Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Centre. This is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is all day that we'll do it live. Time goes in, time goes out. Never miscommunication. It's over 9,000.
My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there. Do a barrel roll. Don't face me, bro. It's a trap. I'm a fire in my ball. Time to Hey, Charlie, wake up. Oh, God, oh, man.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Nerd to Know Basis Show, airing on Phoenix 92.5 FM and all those other wonderful places on the internet such as YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud and our own website. I am Cian and with me this week is Kev. Kev, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Cian. How's it going?
I'm very well, thank you, and thrilled to be back. We, uncharacteristically, have a very busy week in culture. We are currently recording on the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, as well as a big week for other cinema things, and which isn't Minecraft, thankfully. So this is going to be a bit of a mixed one. But I believe we're going to start with something a little bit small scale before we get into all the sort of nerdy Disney stuff. So, Kev, you were telling me off the air, you were very excited to tell me about a gig, a sort of a nerdy themed gig that you attended recently.
Yeah, so not only is it the 25th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, it's the 30th anniversary of PlayStation.
Okay.
And in commemoration of that, Sony have set up a touring orchestra concert throughout Europe that is premiering and playing a bunch of, renowned PlayStation soundtracks. And so their first stop here was over last weekend in the 3 Arena in Dublin, which I thought was odd because usually these sorts of things end up in like the Grand Canal or like the National Concert Hall, kind of like mid-sized like concert halls. Like rare would it be to see like a full orchestra unless it's a big production like War of the Worlds take on the 3 Arena. But they were promising, big state-of-the-art graphic displays and a big orchestra. And I do want to start off by saying it was really good. It was actually a very good time. Playing segments of soundtracks from like the recent God of War games, the Uncharted games, Horizon Zero Dawn. They did a short section from Bloodborne, and there was a group of like 5 guys, maybe 5 rows down from me, who I'm just delighted that their world was brighter for having Bloodborne just be recognized in any shape or form. They went hog wild anytime so much as mentioned the word.
I see. This is why having family work in the concert hall, you would not put this in the concert hall. My dad has played on video game soundtracks before and stuff. And if you're going to put a load of nerds in a room together and get them hyped, it better be an arena and not somewhere that needs respectful clapping,
Yeah.
Maybe the Olympia, clapping. But that'd be like the closest to the push.
Yeah, respectful clapping was not the vibe, but no, it was actually like, it wasn't like outrageous. It wasn't like the Minecraft screenings. It was a good time, and everyone that was there was like into it. my other small favorite one, they did a short segment at near the end on the Astrobot soundtrack, which is an amazing soundtrack, and it sounded great. But the moment somebody on the stage mentioned Astrobot, there was a guy down near the front that just yelled, "That's my son!"
What?
That just yelled, "That's my son!"
I heard you. No, that wasn't what I was plotting.
But everyone lit up. Everyone thought it was really funny, including the guy on stage. Like it was a good vibe. And as I mentioned, they did have like, it was more than just like an orchestra show. They did have like a lot of motion graphics. There was like a big LED screen playing clips and scenes and things in the background. And they had at the front of the stage kind of almost like hologram covers that would come down and display graphics in front of the orchestra. And some like occasionally they kind of make this 3D effect. Like during one of the Horizon soundtracks, it would kind of imitate the gate to one of the cities while they played the city's theme. It was kind of really cool and fun. The oddest part though is that even though like they were presenting this kind of big and grand thing, it was a really small scale affair in a few different ways. So it was a small orchestra, as far as like kind of a tour production like this, maybe about 15 people max, like 4 strings, 4 wind instruments, 2 singers, like a small orchestra. And I definitely think they were like doing some digital chicanery to kind of like boost the sound.
Do you think that they had like extra pre-recorded musicians to amplify the sound, or like
a little bit? I think there was some backing tracks. There was definitely backing tracks because again, there was only 2 singers. Great singers. They did a fantastic job. But during things like the God of War soundtrack, which has this big, epic, deep choral symphony, they had to use a backing track because there was only one guy on stage singing.
That's unusual because again, not to sort of like kind of like give away insider info, but usually when these touring thing comes to town, they would have their principal soloists, be they string or woodwind or singer or whatever, and then they'd sort of like recruit from the local talent to amp up the numbers. So it sounds like they just didn't do that. They kind of had almost like a chamber piece band then.
Yeah, something like that. Now again, like the guys on stage were doing a fantastic job. They were incredibly talented, but there was a kind of an artifice to it. Now again, I'm not complaining. It still sounded great, and hearing those tracks in a big, massive auditorium still sounded fantastic. The other thing that was odd was that this is the emptiest I have ever seen the 3 arena.
Oh.
I'd say maybe a third capacity.
Right.
Like this thing undersold. How familiar are you with the layout of the 3 arena?
Not with the 3 arena in particular, but like I said, I've been in concert halls lots and lots of times, and I know that like this the sort of standard state of play for anything orchestral. It isn't like a pop star would be half 2/3 capacity usually. It's just the way it is nowadays. Like
the kind of the layout for the most part. Say like I go to a metal gig. There's your ground floor standing and then tiered seating that kind of lead down to a balcony. This was tiered seating all the way down because it's an orchestra piece. That's kind of typical of the shows. But where the balcony would like end, they had screen covers to kind of block how empty it looked.
Right. And
even then, of the seats that were still like present and there, it was maybe half capacity.
Okay. Why now? What do you think? There's a particular reason this didn't meet expectations, or was it like
I think, in my opinion on it, is that when I noticed it, it's by I think a new promoter in the kind of the Irish scene. Like it wasn't being put on by the likes of MCD or Aiken, who would be like kind of the big promoters of like live events. It was being done by I think there were a new promoter on the scene called Singular Artists. By all accounts, they seem to be like on the up and up. They actually like they seem to be completely above board. Like there's no chicanery going on there. I just think it didn't get to quite enough screens, and the screens it did get to, because it didn't have a recognizable name, I think a lot of people probably thought that's a scam.
Yeah, because like Video Games Live back in the day, that like I know like we now know the numbers were inflated, but like those sold really well. Like, you know, there is a market for this kind of thing.
Oh yeah, no, and like we don't often get them here just because I think the Irish market is a bit small for these touring productions. But internationally, particularly like in the UK, they're huge and they will constantly sell out. Like I know I'm sickened. I can't make it over there. There's a Metal Gear Solid orchestra concert in the Royal Albert Hall in November, and I can't square that circle. I cannot make that gig. But like by all accounts, that's selling really well, and that's going to be like, and that's again the Royal Albert Hall. It's a pretty big like.
Oh yeah, it's the gold standard, like, you know.
Yeah. So like, no, they're big deals, and like again, it's not to say like that there's no market for that here. I'm pretty sure if it hasn't already happened, I think there's a Stardew Valley concert in the Grand Canal Theater coming up.
Okay. Grand Canal. Okay, that's a big one to fill too.
So that's it, and I think that's a part. That's part of the thing. Is I think that's
Energy Theater.
No. Be gone, Brand.
Emerald Park.
But like I think the Grand Canal would be like a better situation for it. Aside from obviously like the acoustics, I think are probably more suited for that of an orchestra. It's easier to fill out.
I kind of disagree. I feel like you should either do the concert hall or you should do the academy and scale it accordingly.
Okay.
Like I could totally see the academy maybe with some chairs scaled back and a bit of a little mosh pit in front, and then maybe do a week's run would be really good for like a video game style gig or something like that.
One thing actually, just on the concert hall, actually is going to be closed for the next 3 years.
Oh yeah.
They're doing
but in a hypothetical scenario.
Yeah. But yeah, no. And again, all this to say, as I said, I want to reiterate what I said at the top. It was really good. It was a blast. Hearing, as I said, even though there was some vocal touch up on it, that God of War soundtrack is amazing. And hearing the like deep bassy chorus live, fantastic. And the Uncharted soundtrack as well. That's a very kind of like big adventure soundtrack. So like that kind of it got me roused. It was actually a blast. What I'm afraid is because of its underperformance that it will kind of put a fear in people presenting more of these. I would like more video game orchestras in this country. That's my takeaway on this. I hope for more, and I hope that like this hasn't kind of put like a nail in it for the foreseeable future.
No, I think I don't think that will happen. I'd say that the 3 Arena was probably just too ambitious for this gig, and by the sounds of the band, scaled too big as well. I'd say in the right venue that wouldn't have been an issue at all. Like, you know, smaller stage, smaller audience. I'd say it's probably like Sabrina Carpenter sells out the 3 Arena, like Metal Gear does not. And I think that's the sign of a normal world, you know?
I thoroughly disagree, but I see your point. But no, while we're on the topic of video games, I think it'd be pertinent to bring up probably the biggest news in gaming right now, if you'll let me. On Tuesday this week, the worst kept secret in the gaming industry finally came to fruition, and Bethesda released the remaster of Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Had you heard any rumblings about this before it happened?
You're gonna have to go way, way back. I've never played an Elder Scrolls game. Talk to me about Elder Scrolls like I'm a Martian. Go on.
Any Elder Scrolls? Hold on. No, we're stopping here. You've never played any of them.
No, I've got 15 Final Fantasy games to play over and over again until I die. Thank you very much.
Damn. Okay, because I was about to. I wanted to kind of get your take on it, as I just assumed you were a regular person living in this world who had a Skyrim phase.
No, I had to, not to go too anecdotal, I had to do some like research on Skyrim because I was directing a play in which a character was playing Skyrim in it. And then like whenever I made like a little sound effect loop for like the audience. And like whenever the dragon sound played, like the actors would physically shake as like a muscle like thing, the kind of thing. But no, I secondhand experienced the hype, but I've never actually played any kind of Skyrim game, unless you count watching Thomas the Tank Engine edited into it.
That's the natural way of doing it, yeah.
I think that's the best way into anything, yeah.
Yeah. Or Macho Man Randy Savage, yeah.
I mean, I know the bit. It's a big open world, you explore it. First time you play it, you wander for 2 hours, find a cave, and a spider eats you. I know what it is through cultural osmosis. I've never played it.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So the big thing kind of on this is it's funny that like because there's no like what's odd about this is that there's no kind of reason it seems like that Oblivion should have been remade and remastered. I don't think there's any sort of pertinent like anniversary or anything, and they've already out and out said that we're getting an Elder Scrolls 6 sometime nebulously in the future. So it's just kind of an odd release, but like it's gone down really, really well. Oblivion in particular. So where I was going to use you as a point of comparison, you the listener will now have to proxy this because Skyrim was like, you know, obviously a cultural event back in like, you know, 2011, 2010 or something where
yeah, of course.
Like everyone spent years exploring Skyrim and getting like absolutely built into it. I did as well. Not nearly to the degree that everyone else had, because I was a big hipster and had already spent years of my life in Oblivion.
Right.
And like where I think Skyrim has its own little quirks, but like generally is like well regarded while still a little glitchy. Original Oblivion, on the other hand, is like a real Genesis soup of like third-person action RPGs. It's an odd game. If you've ever seen screenshots of Oblivion characters, hold on, while I'm talking, I'm actually going to pull up just to get Kian's live reaction here.
Should I describe what these characters look like for the benefit of this audio experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They're just like, nobody in this game looks good. Everybody looks like they've kind of fallen head face first into the uncanny valley. They're kind of, and like on top of that, the graphic design, everything's like blown up in this, like the coloring and lighting is blown out in this completely oversaturated
Just for this
way.
one, Oblivion, like.
Yeah. Okay. No, it was the engine they were working on at the time, because this is like early PS3, like mid-cycle Xbox 360.
In the uncanny valley where they were going for like photorealistic, but the technology wasn't there.
Yeah. Like that's it. Like okay, for what it was doing a lot. It doesn't age great, but in its own like charm, I really love it. And also like built into that, like the writing is kind of odd and off kilter, but also still kind of gripping in its own way. It's a freaky little game, and I absolutely love it.
Okay, you are hyping this up. I need to start describing images as quickly as possible.
I couldn't send.
Bother. Okay.
But,
well, probably for the best.
Probably for the best. No, they will absolutely haunt your nightmares. But no. So, as I said, there's kind of like it outside. Like it was critically acclaimed. It sold incredibly well. Like we got.
You always see it in like the CEX shops. Like, you know, I know.
Yeah. So like it's not a complete surprise that it got a remaster, but it just seems like an odd thing to dedicate so much time into and then drop with like no fanfare.
What's the Simpsons thing? Why now? Why not 20 years ago? That kind of thing.
Yeah. My best guess, if I put the tinfoil hat on, is okay, to get kind of like crunchy in the industry for a sec. Bethesda has basically been using the same game engine since about Oblivion and Fallout 3, and has been stretching that out to now, to like Starfield was their last big one. And it was particularly with Starfield, Starfield got critically panned for many reasons.
What are those reasons?
Like poor writing, poor game design, the whole litany of reasons why it was kind of ill-liked. But one of them among them is that like they're really squeezing the last of the juice I think they can get out of the creation engine in like modern game design. It was a great engine back like in the 360 era. In the HD era, it just can't really stand up to spec.
Right.
To like side by side with other like open world RPGs. So the big thing with Oblivion is that it uses the bones of the creation engine, but has it pass through Unreal Engine 5. which is like a big current HD open source gaming engine. So I think, like, if I had to guess, I'd say they're using this to test the waters to see how people how people would like the art design and the game design with it passed through on Unreal Engine 5 and kind of getting their hands on that. That's a theory.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I for the record, I have not yet played the remake of Oblivion. But again, since its drop, and also as I mentioned, it's like this is the worst kept secret in gaming. We've been hearing like rumblings about this for about 3 months now. And like there was myriad of leaks that all kind of confirmed that it was going to come out on last Tuesday, the 21st. So that when it did, it was kind of no surprise at all. But even with all that, it's gone down like there's been a lot of buzz. People have been really, really enjoying this game. And it seems like it's done just the right balance of cleaning it up. Where it's polished.
Question: what are like? I know you haven't played it, but what are like the alleged quality of life improvements like?
Graphic controls, UI updates, basically just like kind of a graphic remaster as much as anything, and it's packed in all of the DLC from the original game.
Again, that's always good.
Updated graphics, yeah. So like, yeah, it's mostly a graphic and an engine overhaul. Otherwise, the game itself is pretty much untouched. But I think, like, from what I understand, because a part of the charm in Oblivion and Skyrim to an extent is that the games are a little bit busted. Like it kind of is though. Like people love the fact that you can kind of scale a 90-degree wall on a horse. You know, that's kind of why they come to these games. And it seems like they've kind of kept a little bit of that intact. Right. It seems like as well they've also, while they've redone the animations and that, they've kept most of the original dialogue, which had its own kind of weird stilted awkwardness that was kind of charming in its own way. So like people are coming to this because it's kind of weird and uncanny and a bit broken, and it seems like the developers understood that and kind of kept just enough of that while also making the game, you know, functionable.
Right. So it's a nice compromise between the endearing jankiness and much needed like fix-ups like.
Yeah. So again, haven't played it yet. I intend to. April has been an insanely good month for video games. I just finished the Indiana Jones game there, which from Bethesda actually that one is not developed but published by Bethesda as well. It's developed by Machine Games. Fantastic game, by the way. Probably the best Indiana Jones thing. Actually, no, easily the best Indiana Jones thing to come out since the original trilogy. And probably up there as being as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Holy moly. It's
fantastic. And like, if nothing else, because it's not Harrison Ford, it's Troy Baker, but it's Troy Baker doing
Yeah.
I'm kind of so on him. I find a lot of the time he kind of just plays himself. You hear him and you're like, that's Troy Baker. Mm. He does a pitch perfect Harrison Ford. Like it is indescribable. Like you're watching the facial animations. You're like, I can't believe they didn't get him. You know. Mm. But yeah, there's Indiana Jones. South of Midnight's a great action adventure game, and actually, it's on my to-do list. But have you heard about Claire Obscura Expedition 13, Cian, at all?
You just said like 5 random words that mean nothing to me.
Well, they're about to mean they may mean something soon because it's a new game developed by I don't actually know who the developer is, but a new game released on like most modern consoles, and it has the vibe because we've talked about Final Fantasy a lot on this podcast, and kind of. I think you've not been a fan of kind of its modernization and how it's turned away from the turn-based RPG, if I'm right.
I don't like it as much, but I do like it. Yeah, I like the Kingdom Hearts kind of mechanics where it's a bit 50-50 like.
Yeah, I don't believe this is Square Enix at all now, but This is basically, it's a new turn-based RPG that basically answers the question of what if like a modern Final Fantasy was turn-based.
Hang on while I get my wallet.
It's got like the big flashy animations of it's got a very similar style to Final Fantasy 16, and even to that, it's got the same lead voice actor Ben Starr in another lead role.
Okay.
But as opposed to like a third-person action game, it's a turn-based RPG. And again, it only just came out. I haven't played it, but the critical reviews have been stellar. So like, where I think a lot of people kind of like do hum and haw and kind of begrudge about the fact that there is a big Final Fantasy turn-based RPG, this seems to be really feeding that crowd.
Okay.
So keep an eye on that. That one's for you.
So give me again where it's available, like?
I believe currently it is PS5, Xbox, and PC. I think it's just going to be a bit much for your original Switch.
I love my potato Switch.
Yeah, I think this has too many. I think this has just too many particle effects for your Switch.
I love my brick.
Actually, this makes for a perfect segue because among other stellar voice cast of Claire Obscura, there's one little known actor, some you may recognize him, one Charlie Cox.
No way.
Yeah, no, he's one of the lead actors, which I think will segue us both perfectly into Daredevil Born Again, which we also recently
You have the opposite problem to Dara here, which is we can't stop him talking about Star Wars. I can't let you talk me about Star Wars. But let's do Daredevil, because that's I'm still kind of a bit wobbly from how that... I mean, we're a week and a half off the finale. We will say gentle spoilers, yeah?
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think
maybe not a detailed plot, but like some elements may come out.
We'll talk some characters and that. Yeah, I think that's fair. But like, we haven't talked about it really since like it started, and I was big on this series since its beginning because of how I mentioned it kind of shook the ground with like that intro scene of Bullseye and
Foggy.
Foggy, yeah. And so it kind of like it set up where it was very clearly like a continuation of the Netflix Daredevil. It set up like, okay, well, here's a completely new status quo in that continuity. Go.
And it had its own style with the BB report interruptions, and like it's like unlike the Netflix ones, which are very like kind of character focused, you got the sense with this one that the city of New York kind of was a character. In the way that like Jessica Jones, they kind of had their own little province, but it didn't factor in the same way, like, you know.
Yeah, and like obviously that sort of like scale, that sort of kind of ballooning in scale from Hell's Kitchen to all of Manhattan is reflected in the fact that the main like conflict of like the seasonal arc is that Fisk is mayor, and it's kind of the tension of that love like that, and whether or not Matt Murdock is going to take back up the cowl. What I really liked about this, though, in comparison to the Netflix Daredevils, is that, and in comparison to, I'd say, a lot of like the Marvel Disney stuff, is this feels like from the ground up it was designed to be a television series, and like really benefited from that episodic format.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't a movie chopped up into bits. Like, to be fair, I think Hawkeye also straddled that line very well. But
there has been shows that have been good about
fighting against the format to do that, you know.
Yeah, no, there has been shows already that, like, again, as much as Dara hates it, I liked She-Hulk for this reason exactly. Which
WandaVision and Agatha all along would be also like kind of, they definitely benefit like from TV, like, you know.
Which, if I could put a post-it on this, in terms of cameos that were completely excluded, I am shocked there was no sign of her in this whole series. But
Agatha,
She-Hulk, no, She-Hulk.
Yeah, I thought they'd at least mention her, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
I suppose tonally she might jar a bit.
Oh, completely. But I don't know. Maybe because we already know we're getting a second season.
Yeah.
Which
could I put on my tinfoil hat thing? Because we talked about this in the chat, but not on the show.
yeah.
It's this Daredevil show was made, and then possibly in and around the time that Marvel really seemed shaky with all the Kang stuff, the whole show got thrown out and started again. And I think a remnant of that was the episode where Daredevil is in the bank with Miss Marvel.
Kamala Khan's dad, yeah.
And the Irish are there. I think maybe in its original inception, because Daredevil was going to be an episode of the week, but not overarching thing, where maybe he hung out with a different Marvel star, and She-Hulk would have fit that mold better. And then they threw most of it out, and that got lost in the switch over. If you notice in that episode, the only connection to anything in the series is one 80-yard line of like, get this to Lux or someone like that.
Yeah, no, it's so it's
everything else.
Yeah, no, it's so clearly like delineated. Because on top of that, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm certain that when this series initially got announced, it was announced for a 20 episode run.
Yes.
Like it was like
20
shocking
episodes, and it was supposed to be a case of the week thing. And also, your man who plays the Punisher wasn't signed on for it, but signed on for the remake. Now, I don't know why that is. Could have been scheduling, could have been money. Pieces always make it out that it's like, oh, he wasn't happy, and then he was. But we don't know. The fact is, we don't know.
We don't know. Yeah. But I think, like, we're probably going to see this, and I think that's, like, aside from the fact that it has been very, very critically liked, I think the reason we're getting a season 2, like, or at least season 2 confirmed so quickly after, is because they probably shot a lot of this in continuity, like at the same time.
Yes.
I don't believe we know when we're getting a season 2 yet, but I reckon within a year.
That like, kind of might be reflected in, not to segue too far, but I know with Doctor Who, they shot the 2 Ncuti Gatwa series back to back before the second season even started airing, or before the first season started airing. So that might be the new business model, kind of taking the Lord of the Rings, do it all at once approach.
Maybe, yeah. If something is kind of like enough of a cash cow, they could probably ride it out. Which again, this had the cultural cachet of like being an already well-loved series.
Yeah.
I believe they brought back most of the writing staff. I might be wrong on that.
Okay.
But yeah, like they were like, okay, here's the thing that worked. We're gonna just put it on our platform and do it again. And you know what? It did. It worked. Because it's like, again, I can't speak to the writing staff. They might have changed hands. I don't have that in front of me. But like, if like putting Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio in a room, the chemistry is unbelievable.
Yes. And I really like that the central tension of this show was essentially Matt Murdock was trying not to be Daredevil and Fisk was trying not to be Kingpin. And it was sort of and you wouldn't think that would make for good drama, because you're essentially not doing the premise of the show. But it works, and it's interesting to see which one of them caved first, like.
Yeah. No, it's and like that's, again, you get both of them absolutely giving it 100%.
Yes.
And yeah, no, it's fantastic. And again, as we mentioned, John Bernthal did end up reprising his role for the Punisher. It was a small cameo in one episode, but then came back big time in the finale, which I'm very, very happy that Disney didn't soften the edges of the Punisher.
Yeah.
I think it's not exactly painting him as a good guy. He's just kind of a chaotic force of nature.
No, but that's the central tension of it, isn't it? Because it's, I don't know if it was done deliberately, but like the handy get out of jail free for Disney and Marvel is that you have this show, and essentially at its core, it's about the ethics of whether vigilantes should exist and should keep doing what they're doing. And like, if the Kingpin is the ultimate immoral order, then like the Punisher is like more the other end of that scale than even Daredevil. So it's handy to have 2 extremes for him to bounce off, like, you know.
It's the it's actually it kind of lines up very well with like with the Dungeons and Dragons alignment chart of like chaotic through like lawful and then evil and good, and like
Yeah.
the Kingpin would be lawful evil where he has like a strict code of conduct and like it is working against the betterment of humankind, but like stands by his like his own personal morals, whereas the Punisher is just a chaotic evil force of nature that will just walk into a room and murder so many people.
True, but then you also have the sort of the loose cannon cops who idolize the Punisher because of what he does, not really understanding why he does what he does. They admire his like no restrictions policy, but not actually the how and why of what he does, you know. So I found it interesting, particularly with that trial in the middle around who was the kind of character on trial? The
White Tiger, Ayala, Hector Ayala.
White Tiger, yeah. Particularly how like you sort of had it analyzed from a few different angles. Like it kept it because then you have his story, and then you sort of have the Blood Painter, and it's like, you know, with some savvy media spinning, you can easily lump these all into the one box. Like even Poindexter or Bullseye, you know, would fit that brief, like, you know, to some extent.
Yeah, and again that's kind of Fisk and Vanessa's like kind of dirty little secret of that they're using the system they're trying to crush. Which also, again, another thing I'm kind of surprised Disney went on like hard. I think they could have gone harder in it, but I'm surprised they even went as far as they did. Is just the reflection of police brutality being very similar to real life, because there are so many cop cars in the US with the thin blue line Punisher logo, and it's the Punisher looking in the camera and be like, "You guys suck."
Yes.
You guys absolutely blow.
But I mean, we're talking about Daredevil, not the Punisher. But like that's the tricky thing about having the Punisher in any media thing, because like, not to get too political, but like the show's political, you can't help it. America has a problem with guns being freely available and
quote unquote a problem.
Freely, we'll leave it at that. And then you have a Marvel character who, you know, has his own code and uses guns remorselessly and all that. And how do you square that with him standing next to Iron Man? You know, like how do you make that work?
Yeah, no. I mean, that's the tricky one with comics, and kind of why they can get a bit silly. No, and actually, I don't think I actually said this to you at all. Since I finished this, I've actually gone back, because I think I mentioned when we started this that I fully just missed the last season of Daredevil and kind of picked up maybe 2 seasons of television after I left off. So I've now gone back and I'm watching that 3rd season of the Netflix Daredevil, and I'm planning on going to watch the Punisher series. Which that 3rd season of Daredevil is great, and like it's delving into Poindexter is fantastic. It's you know, it was a good series for a reason, but I'm definitely noticing, especially like separated from its initial release and in comparison to Born Again, its pacing is sluggish.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was I don't know why they made all of the Marvel things on Netflix a mandatory 13 episodes. I don't know if that was a Netflix mandate or a Marvel mandate, but that works great with a moody thing like Jessica Jones. It doesn't work great for, especially that 3rd series is like, it's supposed to be a pacey story, but it's too long. Like, it'd be worth actually looking at Iron Fist series 1 and 2, because just by slashing it from 13 episodes to 10, the quality shoots up. Like, it's much more focused and much more fun, because it doesn't have to be this big sluggish thing, you know?
Yeah, no, it's on my list. I think I'll definitely go back and catch up on Iron Fist and Luke Cage as well. But yeah, no, it's just funny in a comparison, because like the pacing in Born Again is whip fast by kind of merit of that episodic structure. You know, you get 3 episodes on Hector Ayala, you get that one in the bank, you get 2 on Muse, and then we're into the finale. Like it go.
Yeah. kind of like series two, because series two has a bit on the Punisher and then a bit on Elektra, and it sort of mixes and matches to
Yeah,
fit the word count, as it were.
definitely. And while the Elektra section I think does get a bit extended and lose the plot of itself, those 5 episodes of the Punisher are so tight.
Oh yeah, no, I did because like I did the highlights when this show started. The big roof face off with the Punisher, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist teaming up in the season two. Like you can definitely make a playlist of like the top 5 or 6 episodes across the because like I did it. I think it's supposed to be like 150 odd episodes if you add all those together. It's a lot. Like
It's a lot. Yeah, no,
yeah.
they put a lot out of that.
Like if you do a Marvel chronological like thing in order, there's going to be a big old gap between Guardians of the Galaxy and Age of Ultron when that stuff starts coming out. Like
Yeah. But I think I've taken up enough of your time. I think, Kian, why don't you tell us about Star Wars?
I want to, but I think we've only got like 8 minutes or something.
A little over 10.
Okay,
We're good.
all right. I'll tell you what. I will talk about Star Wars, but we'll only kind of talk about it a bit because I know Dara probably has thoughts on it. He is not here because he's currently watching it.
Yes.
But
that's okay. This is the thing that's driving me because you mentioned at the top. It's the anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. I'm 20, yeah. I'm surprised that this is having the draw it is.
Oh yeah, because, like I mean, I was always sold on it. I saw it 3 times back in the day, but it's amazing because I went to it with my wife Stevie, and like we were like surprised by how many teenagers there were there, and like kind of like students I teach and that kind of stuff, and like sometimes they got out their phones, but like one of the teenage girls in our row said like that was one of the best movies I've ever seen, and it's amazing that this third installment in a trilogy that was essentially, driven off the internet in the meme form.
Oh, maligned.
Like I said that this has such an appeal and a draw, considering how old it is, how like over kind of shared Star Wars is, and like considering how everyone hated the prequels back in the day. I remember both the hype and the anti-hype around this one. I remember it getting 1 star in like a lot of the tabloids and newspapers at the time. But like 2 things jumped out to me, apart from a lot of things, but 2 things for the purposes of this. Which is one, Star Wars just benefits from being in a cinema. It's no matter how good or bad the Star Wars movie is, there's nothing like seeing a Star Wars movie in a cinema with a packed crowd and the brilliant sound design and the lightsaber fights and all that.
I will give it that is before we found out about the sequel trilogy, before we knew anything about episode 7, they released the Clone Wars animated movie.
Oh yeah?
In cinema, and like I think I had just got, I think episode 3 was like the only one I'd seen in cinemas at the time, just because of age I was and what have you. So hearing the John Williams score, even on an animated movie of a series I had not watched, hearing that in the cinema hits.
Oh yeah, that was.
So no, I fully get what you mean.
Like the sound design on any Star Wars movie is gorgeous. Like not just the score, but the actual effects make you jump and all that kind of stuff. The other thing that jumped out to me is removed from. And we kind of talked about this at Dublin Comic Con with the sort of the J.J. Abrams panel and all that kind of stuff. Removed from the time it came out in, a couple of things jump out. One, which is Revenge of the Sith is just a class movie. Any criticisms people have of it, like, Darth Vader shouldn't say Padme or whatever, those are kind of holdover from the first 2 prequels more than anything. I feel like if you just put Revenge of the Sith in with the original trilogy, it holds up. I think it's class. And also a bit like what you were saying, what we were trying to talk about before we went on the air with like South Park and stuff. Revenge of the Sith is also like a weird artifact of its time because it's got that subtext of like the war on terror and like, manipulating sort of well-meaning people into doing bad things and all that kind of stuff and optics and all that. So
it is wild how much stuff came out at that time that
Yeah.
has no reason to but had that like underlying 9/11. Listen, we will talk. We will spend an hour talking about it one day. But Star Trek Enterprise has no reason to be so 9/11 coded as it is.
I'm currently on season 3 of that. We're watching it in chronological order. Yeah, it's well, I know Lindsay Ellis has already kind of done it, but like someday there will be a big cinema style documentary about media made post 9/11. Like it's just you can feel it, and it's just to see it in particularly because Andor dropped this week, which is dealing with similar things. Like to see it reflected in Star Wars 20 years out, it's like God. And this movie's fantastic, and it's so focused on Anakin and his like downfall and all that kind of stuff. Where like the other two prequels are like, oh, here's Jar Jar doing his thing, here's Qui-Gon doing his thing, here's Obi-Wan doing his thing. No, every scene is Anakin feels this, tries this, does that. I had a fantastic time. I'm really glad they put this one back in cinemas. And no little teaser after the credits like when they did with the Phantom Menace a year or two ago. Nothing like that. You get your movie, you get out, you have a good time. I really enjoyed seeing this in cinemas, and we'll probably talk more about it next week. But with I'm assuming 5 minutes left.
Thereabouts, a little over.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about something, another film that isn't Minecraft. Which, by the way, to the people who attended my screening, thank you for not like doing a chicken jockey. Everyone was very respectful. No, seriously, people could have shouted out, "You are the chosen one," or "Do it," or any of that. They didn't. They sat in polite.
Oh, sorry, your screening of Star Wars. I thought you meant your screening of Minecraft.
No, seriously. They could have gone in and yelled out the memes, and they didn't. And I'm very grateful. You know, it was a respectful full cinema, which is not nothing these days.
Yeah. Before we do talk about a very serious movie that I know you do want to talk about. Have you seen Minecraft?
No. I feel like I have, but I haven't.
Okay, just wanted to check in. Continue.
No time. No. But we also saw a very, very good film a documentary called 1 to 1, which funnily enough, it's a biopic about John Lennon and Yoko Ono. But it's not like a beginning, middle, end thing. It's not like they met in this, and then this happened, and then this happened. No. Do you know anything about this film?
No. There is precisely one train station like poster I have seen of it, and that is my entire exposure to it. Okay. So no, I don't know anything about this. So like, is this like a documentary film using like archival footage, or is it like
you have no idea how correct you are. So basically, the conceit of this film is it's what they were doing when they moved to a flat in America in 1973. And basically, it was a small 2-room flat, probably smaller than the one I'm in now. And they just had the television on all day. And it informed what they decided to do, what causes they got involved with, all that kind of stuff. And apart from some footage that's filmed in like a staged like recreation of their flat, which is empty, the entire thing is just TV footage of things that were on TV in 1973. You'll get random ads for cars mixed in with like war footage from Vietnam, mixed in with like people being interviewed on TV, and then now and again it'll be intercut with previously unheard recordings of John Lennon and Yoko Ono talking to people on the phone. And there's no like guiding narrator. There's no like, and then this happened, and this means this, and this means that. It is the most free association movie I have ever seen. Like, I've seen the Peter Jackson like Get Back thing on Disney Plus, which feels very free association, but this is less guided than that. You come away feeling like you lived through 1973 because you see all the Nixon stuff, you see all of the like kind of riots and stuff in the street. Did you know like a black female congresswoman ran for president in 1973? I didn't. All this like weird stuff mixed in, and like the only kind of framing of it is that now and again you see, I suppose there's two framings, one of which is he did a concert called the 1 to 1, which he did for free, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, I should say, the whole band, because he saw on TV that there was this home for like, mentally challenged people where they literally just let people sleep on the floor, and it was horrible. And they were so horrified they did this concert that like they raised $1.5 million to basically get them better treatment, which was not nothing in 1973. And then the other thing is that you get what causes they got involved with. And the causes seem to be like they saw something on TV. Let's ring up Bob Dylan and like, organize a charity. Every time we do a concert, let's give all the proceeds to get people on bail out of jail, that kind of stuff. So you get the sense that you can almost feel the 60s dying. There was like they were trying to make the world a better place, but it was very aimless. There's a lot going on in it, but it's a really, really fascinating movie. And I will say, we were moved to tears. Like, it's just so gripping and so emotional. There's almost too much to take away. That's why I was very eager to talk about it earlier, because there's just so much in it. But even if you don't like the Beatles, I would highly recommend this one. Like,
Yeah, like it sounds like kind of an experimental, like a real experimental, like period piece.
Yeah.
Like I said, a snapshot of like 1973. Yeah, no, I think I saw it and just kind of assumed it was just kind of a standard, just archival biopic of the life and times of John and Yoko, and kind of whatever takeaway they can want to take away about that, because I know that can be a fairly polarizing opinion of like how their relationship was and yada yada yada. Which actually, I know she put up a cut of it on YouTube, but I watched it on Nebula. The Lindsay Ellis video on them is actually really, really good. It kind of gets into the deeper intricacies of their relationship with the Beatles and why there's a lot of misinformation about, what caused what in terms of their breakup. Very good video.
You're absolutely right, but like the Beatles don't really factor into this at all.
Oh yeah, well, like that's when you get into like that late of the 70s. The Beatles are past gone, because they broke up in 68.
One person asks John Lennon in a radio interview on the phone, "Are the Beatles getting back together?" And he says no, and there's no mention of them after that. Like obviously their shadow kind of looms over, because Alan Klein, who kind of managed the Beatles near the end, we hear him on the phone and stuff. But no, it's like I cannot stress how freeform this is. Like even like because people are praising like it's a reappraisal of Yoko Ono in a similar fashion, and it is, but that's not the focus of the movie. That's an ingredient in the movie. Like you hear her like being disrespected on the phone, and like there's talk about how they had to move away from the UK because of the racism, and then when John Lennon gets politically active with her, they then try and have them deported from America right before their kid is born and all that kind of stuff. But like that is an ingredient. Like you do feel like you spent a year living this and you realized like the story of each Beatle is like very romantically told now, but it's easy to forget how chaotic the world was then, because it feels pretty chaotic now, as reflected in bizarre things like Daredevil of all things. So like to see not like a sort of a hippy dippy, Carpenter's style 1973 reflected in raw footage, you come away feeling a lot of emotions, like,
Yeah, like it sounds like they took a real shot with like experimental filmmaking and nailed it.
Yeah, and like John and Yoko's like son, Sean, is like one of the sound engineers on it. So like it is made with care, but it's also not like John Lennon's the best thing since sliced bread and so is Yoko Ono. It is incredibly frank. You come away feeling good things and bad things about everyone involved, like,
a deeply like human project.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no, that sounds it just sounds really interesting.
Like know what you're getting in for, but do go see it if you know what I mean. It's not like a rosy biopic. It is challenging, but it's worth the challenge. Like
Cool. Well, that is on that kind of like somber note. That is where we're gonna have to end it this week. But if you like what we do here, you can of course find more of our episodes, all of our back catalog on our YouTube channel. Nerd to Know on nerdtoknowmedia.com. Sorry, you can find all of our back catalog on our YouTube channel by searching Nerd to Know Media. thousands of hours of podcasts on that. You can find all
how
our
the internet works. You can find us.
You can find us. You can find us on, of course, all of our socials on nerdtomedia.com.
Don't type in Need to Know Media. It tries to autocorrect to that sometimes.
No. Google tries to silence us, but we won't allow it.
I'm sure they're grand, but they're not us.
Not us. Of course, on our website, if you like what we do, you can find our Patreon on our YouTube, on our website. I'm all over the place right now. Big tangled web.
That thing, YouTube and internet, we're on it. Go find.
Go, please. Money, give. But until next time, I've been Kev.
And I've been Cian.
And we've been here.
Are you okay?
I think I need to go to bed. Goodbye.
I've never been so tempted to do a retake. Bye.
Alright, so you're listening to the podcast, you're like, hey, I'm not in Ireland, how do I get in touch? Well, TuneIn has you covered. That's how you can check us out live when we're on the radio. You go to TuneIn and download the app, or you can check out the live streams on nerdtoknowmedia.com or Phoenix 92.5 FM. If you want to get in contact with us, it's very easy. Nerd to Know Media everywhere. Nerd to Know Media on Twitter, Nerd to Know Media Instagram, Nerd to Know Media on Twitch, Nerd to Know Media at gmail.com if you want to reach out via email. Hope to hear from you soon. Check out the Wrestling Rewind here on Phoenix 92.5 FM every Tuesday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And of course over on nerdtoknowmedia.com, the only wrestling podcast by wrestling fans who don't hate wrestling.
Thank you for
see you then.
listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.